Welcome to Daily Life Connection. What a joy it has been to share with you over these months, exploring the heart of God and who He is. I want to thank you. Many of you have replied or sent me emails or uh, personally told me that you feel like it's enriching your relationship with God. And for that, I am deeply grateful to Him for using this for that purpose, because that's my heart. My heart is to help us somehow get deeper into the life of God, deeper into His heart, or maybe even conversely, let Him get deeper into ours so that we experience Him and know Him in new and fresh ways. So today, let's talk about, I want to come from Ezekiel chapter 47, wonderful passage, one of my favorites. Talks about the river flowing from the temple, and you remember it was a prophetic vision, and he leads Ezekiel, this angel does, and he says, look how deep the river is, and it was at his ankles, and then it was at his knees, then it was at his waist, and finally it was so deep he couldn't stand up, he had to swim in it. A picture, and then it says in verse 9, it says, wherever the river flows, everything lives. I want to talk today a little bit about the God who is a river of life. Wherever God flows, everything lives, everything comes to life. That is such, we've talked before about how God is a blazingly alive God. Life. In John chapter 1, it talks about Jesus who was with God in the beginning and is God. And it said, in Him was life. In Him was life. And Ezekiel said, and wherever that river flows, that life of God flows, everything comes alive. I want us to think a little bit about that today, about the God who, as we allow Him to flow into various parts of our life, into different rooms that we may have shut the door and not let Him in, but we let Him flow into those areas, they come to life. It talks in that picture about swamps and deserts coming alive. There may be some parts of our lives that we feel like are kind of dead, like a desert. There's no real life there. We've been wounded, we've been hurt, our dreams have died, our relationships may have died, and it just feels like that whole part of our life is death. Well, as we open our doors, excuse me, of our heart and our lives, we find the river of God, the river of His life, begins flowing into those areas. And it's amazing what He can do. It's amazing the new life that He can bring forth. I've seen those pictures, and I'm sure you have too, of desert areas, and I think it's in California, where everything is just brown. There's nothing. And they get a nice heavy spring rain, and a few days later, those hills and valleys are just carpeted in purple and yellow, blossoms everywhere, just literally carpeted. The majesty and it's incredible. It's so beautiful. That's an illustration of wherever the river of God flows, the water of God flows, everything comes to life. What may have been dry and barren and dusty and arid and uninhabitable suddenly becomes something that is beautiful beyond description, something that people, they flock to see those explosions of new life in those hills and valleys, in those places where when it rains they come to life like that. And that's what God wants to do in us. And there are some areas of our life that are dead. There are some areas of our life that are dark. And it says, and that life was light in John chapter 1. In Him was life, and that life was the light of all people. Let that river of His love flow into us. I guess part of what I'm saying is today, I just want to encourage us to open up, invite Him to flow into those broken, wounded, dark, shut off, dry, desert places in who we are. And I think one of the sad things is, as I get older, to realize the potential is there throughout our years for when we come into those dark places and difficult places, when people treat us badly or circumstances or our health diminishes or whatever it may be. It is so easy to just kind of keep closing doors in our life, and parts of us get shut off, and we think there's no hope of revitalization there, and we sort of give up, and life closes in. And I really think a part of what this is, God, the river of life, is all about, is opening those places up so that they become expansive and glorious again. And they can. He's that kind of God. His river is that powerful. What do we got to lose to open up and say, I welcome you into this area of my life, this part of me that has become dead, into my, just whatever, physical, emotional, social, spiritual life, and let him flow in that, because he is a river. And when that river flows, everything comes alive. The God who is a river of life. Let's jump in today. Let's invite him to saturate us, soak us, flow into us and all around us, and bring new life into our ideas and our relationships and our thinking and our social life and our spiritual life, because that's who God is. He is a river of life, and he desperately wants to flow into you, bringing all of that to you. Well, let's think about that, and we'll talk again tomorrow. God bless.